Hello everyone, this is our weekly Subspace desktop meeting, and again we will giving the news about what has been changed and what are the new things related to Subspace desktop. We can start with the closed issues. So let's start with those three. So for the release 0.4.2 and 3. There was an error in reward address logic. So when you basically click confirm, it would not proceed into view mnemonic. So you would not be able to view your mnemonic and skip it to the plotting phase. But after clicking confirm for the creating directory, it would just disappear and nothing happens. This is related to some flags we set. It was due to some complicated architecture. We fixed that. This is no longer an issue, so it proceeds in the correct manner. So it's fixed. It's more like a back end of the front end issue. And here we were showing the version statically, not dynamically. We fixed that. So now the version will appear dynamically. And this is the big thing I will talk about a bit, a lot actually about this. So previously we were storing the configuration information in the application itself. So it was not stored in an external file. And that's why when you delete the application and reinstall the same version or another version, all the configuration information was lost. And that's why if you had a plot and you installed a new version of the application, it was not able to detect your already existing plot, and of course you had to replot or you had to re-enter your reward address. So now we are storing all these informations like where is the plot is stored, size of your plot, your reward address, and your preference for launch on boot. So we are storing all of these in an external file, and whether or not you reinstall a new version or delete the application, blah, 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 this file will be stored. And when you reinstall the application, all this information will be remembered so that you can continue your plotting from where you left. These are the intermediate steps that we don't need to dive into for this meeting, but all the tasks are completed for that. And we had a PR for that, actually. And that is merged just 10 or 20 minutes ago. Actually, it's fresh. So if there are no questions for the closed issues, I can proceed into that PR. Let's do that. Closed ones. I will talk about that later. When the topic is the same, let's continue with the external configuration PR. So as I said, these are the information that are being stored in our external file. Right now, there are one more thing, which is segment cache. Stores some information related to node, but that will be gone in the next iteration probably, so I did not include that as an information in here. There are some other improvements as well. So let's say you install different versions of the app throughout the course, and for each application, actually for macOS, I tested this on macOS, I don't know about other OSs, but for macOS, there are multiple entries created for each version for the boot. So when your computer boots, the computer tries to launch every version of the Subspace desktop. Since you uninstalled the previous versions, there are no issues there are no visible issues, but the entries are still there. So I updated the disable function for that, disabling the launch on boot setting. Now it searches for all the Subspace desktop entries and deletes them if you disable it. So there are no pollution for the entries. This is related to debugging environment. There were some console log statements present in the code which are not actually errors. So I pruned them or changed or handled them, let's say. So these are still need to be logged, but not as errors. And we had some minor refactoring. So in the demo, I will launch the application and I will show you the configuration file that is being created and show how it's getting changed when we change the settings. Any questions about this PR or the external configuration file? Okay. So we can jump to the README. So this is the final thing actually. We had added OS requirements to the README, and below are the OSs and versions of them that we tested so far. The more we test and confirm, this list will grow, or maybe we will put boundaries like Windows 10 plus, something like that. Nazar suggested keeping it simple for the moment and not giving boundaries because we have not tested truly. That's the first iteration for OS requirements. It will be improved in the later process. Any questions about this? Okay. I can also show you some new issues. So as I said, the reward address logic is fixed, but apparently there's a new issue about that. After I fixed the structure and reflected all the new structure from multi-replica in that branch, regarding reward address, of course. So in the development environment, it works, which is weird. But in production, I think it doesn't work because when I downloaded the executable from the release, the bug reproduced itself. And since it's the production environment, I'm not able to access the console logs. I can only access the logs of Tauri. And from that, I was not able to detect where is the bug is coming from. Again, the weird thing is I thought it was fixed because in the development environment, it is working. Justin submitted this, reopened this actually, like a couple of minutes before the meeting. So I will test it after this meeting thoroughly. And we were just talking with Serge, like somehow enabling console logs, like accessing the logs of front end in the production environment as well. So if I can't resolve this, we can try that with Serge. So that's the only bug that is preventing us from getting a stable release. Other than that, and like consider the development environment, I think it's stable, but somehow it's getting broken in the production, so we have to fix that.
I just shared with you a link to how to make debug possible in the production build.
Okay, great. Thank you, Serge. So it should be fairly easy to debug this then, because our logs are actually pretty great. So just by looking at logs, we can deduce where the bug is originating from. And that's why probably the next goal for the next task is to create an external logging system, so that when our users encounter some issue, we should be able to debug everything easier than our current process. Any questions, or should I skip to demo? Okay, let's go to demo. So, all right, great. The application has started, and in the other side of the window, I will show you the configuration file. This is not meant to be tinkered with, so the only purpose I'm showing this is that it works and what's going on behind the scenes. I do not recommend our users to play around with this configuration file. because it can break many things. So, okay, let's do something. Let's say start, and let's say start plotting, confirm. Okay, next. And let's inspect our configuration file. So as you can see, location of my plot, size of my plot, my reward address, my preference for launch on boot, the version of the application, and some other information related to Node has been saved in the configuration file. And if I close it and change some preference, for example, launch on boot, it was true, if you remember. Let's make it false and reopen the configuration file. It has been reflected here immediately. So any changes related to configuration will be reflected in this file immediately. And when we uninstall and reinstall the application will be able to read this configuration file and deduce the necessary information, and will be able to detect your plot and continue your farming. The location of this configuration file is not to be changed. It will always be stored in the default location for your operating system. For example, in macOS, it is application support under library, and the folder name will be this application's name. The reason for not changing this configuration file's location, or not make it configurable for the location, is let's say you change the location of this config file, and let's say you install a new version. How will this new version will know the place of the configuration file? So it needs to be a stable location. But you are still able to select the location of your plot. So whether you want to put your plot in this folder or not, the configuration file will always stay in this folder. So that's kind of important. And yeah, that's all for, yeah.
If you change the location of your plot and you reinstall, how does it know where your plot was when you reinstall?
Okay, it will not. So you have to probably we should store some button for update plot location or detect plot location. And throughout that, you can enter a location for your plot, and it should update this configuration file and use that information. Yeah, like when you change the location of your plot manually, it's not able to detect it yet.
Okay, so I think maybe I was confused and I asked a dumb question. So the location here, so you're saying the location of this config file never changes. The user can change the location of the plot. That's this field here, plot location. But that will reflect if they choose a non-standard location, or it won't.
Yeah, let me rephrase it. Maybe I explained it bad. So when you are first, like from scratch, starting to plot, it asks for a configurable file. Like you can select where your plot can reside. You can select that, and this will be initialized as that. But after that, if you change the location of your plot manually by copying pasting files, this will not be updated yet, so it won't work. The thing I meant is you can select the location of your plot, but you cannot select the location of the configuration file.
Okay, but after you start plotting, you can change the location of your plot? Or you're just saying before you start plotting?
Before.
But it won't be reflected here.
If you select the plot before you start, if you select the location before you start plotting,
but that's the only time that you can select your location.
Yeah,
I guess.
of course,
So there's no case where this will get out of sync, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes,
it's not possible to have a plot location which is not recorded here.
True. Like the only possible scenario where this location is not reflecting your actual location will be you manually go into file system and cut and paste.
Oh, well, we
plot
can't
to
control. Yeah, yeah, we can't control what the user does. Okay, but that's not expected to.
Yeah, but that's not expected, but still we can have a button for detect my plot. For example, like
I think that's overkill, honestly.
Okay. Okay.
That's a little bit too far for this stage.
Yeah, I can imagine a use case for that. Like the plots will be huge, and
Yeah.
maybe people will replace disks, or maybe they will start on their initial disk, then we'll say, okay, I will buy a new disk and transfer that to here. And in this case, they might not want to start from scratch.
One question I had was, aren't the plots associated to the farmer identity? If you lose your farmer identity, your plot becomes invalid and you have to replot, right?
True.
So does this configuration file also keep the farmer identity? Because when they reinstall, that'll be wiped, if I'm not mistaken.
We don't need to store the farmer identity because farmer identity is already handled in the backend from Tauri, and that information is also stored as a file.
Okay.
So it's not in the memory of the application.
You're
The
talking
only
about
thing
the
we need to store
signing
is the
key,
reward address.
right? When you
Sorry?
say farmer identity, you mean signing key or you mean reward address?
Signing key.
Yeah, signing keys are stored in the plots, right? Those are retained.
Yeah,
Yeah.
inside plots there's identity for each plot, and that will be handled in the backend.
Gotcha. I was thinking of an edge case, like if the user restarted, they would have a new farming identity, so then the plot would be invalid. But it sounds like that's taken care of, so ignore me.
No. Like even if you install a new version, if the application detects your plot, it will use your same identity for signing. So Tauri part is handling that, not the application itself. So
Is that the word that we're using to describe it, farmer identity? Is that like the technical term in our documentation in our code that we use, or is that just a slang that we use?
That's what I've always used. I'm not sure where I picked it up initially.
Okay.
It's
Because
just
we should just be, for clarity, we should really be saying like plot identity, because each farmer will have multiple identities based on the number of plots that they have. And we really never want to even expose that to like a user. Like that should just not even be a concept they have to think about. It should just be like when I think farmer, like if we were talking to users and we say farmer identity, that's like their reward address. Basically plot identities are the signing keys, which is kind of what we're talking about here.
I'll make sure to. I think there's some places where that's mentioned in the FAQs and stuff, so I'll make sure to get that clarified.
Okay.
So yeah, any further questions? If not, like
Okay.
there are some. Yeah.
Oh, go
Please
ahead,
go
Oscar.
ahead.
I didn't know if you meant questions for the presentation or questions for this segment, but keep going.
Yeah, my last sentence would be like there are some minor updates on the issues, like some tasks completed or some descriptions or titles changed. But other than that, for the development, there are no major things left out. Okay, that's all.
Okay, so if you could talk a little bit about what the next steps are for you, and Serge as well, what the next steps you'll be working on when you transition over to this.
Sure. Let me start by me. So I think this became a high priority because for every other issue in the production mode, it would be really good to being able to access the logs, because every time I try to reproduce the issue on my end, and for some edge cases like this time, the Justin's new bug, I cannot reproduce it on the development environment. So this is like this will be important for other issues as well. So I think I should prioritize this, and this will be the next step. After that, my plan, I already started that, but my plan is to finish this, remove the blockchain size requirement. A few tasks have been completed for this big issue. After finalizing that, I think we are good to go. For implementing multi-replica feature, it's been done for the code, but we will perform some additional tests about that, and I can look into that, but actually I don't think it's a high priority. I think these two are more high priority than this one. So I can update these priorities if you all agree.
I
There
definitely
was a
agree.
issue. Oh, go ahead, just.
I was just gonna say I definitely agree. The logs, not having the logs has been a major roadblock, and it'll definitely help with like getting feedback from users and being able to figure out what's causing their issues, etc.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely make that one high priority. That shouldn't be very hard to implement. I would imagine that should be pretty straightforward.
I think so.
There was another issue which we've been talking about for several weeks now with this change to the front end of the loading screen. That I shared that PowerPoint slide with you, Oskin, about how to change that. Is that something? Go ahead, Serge. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, it's assigned on me.
Okay. Okay. All right, cool. If you can make that your first task, Serge, I'd just really like to see that. That seems like a really simple thing to fix. It should take like 30 seconds to change.
Yes, it is simple.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Handle farmer exit gracefully, we can put down to medium. Logs we can make high. I think the next step would be logs and then the blockchain size requirement, and then probably start working on the graceful exit.
Yeah, that's my plan too. Agreed.
Okay. Great.
Do you want me to switch to search?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Let's get rid of that.
Okay. Serge, any thoughts, any comments on these? Are they all clear?
Yeah, as we discussed everything previously, so nothing to add.
Okay, great. Justin, anything missing here?
Not that I can think of. Really, I think we've just been having some issues with that 0.4 version. But I have a feeling once we get multi-replica going, obviously, I hope we should be good to go for our next latest release. I don't know. Seems like every new version we try and do of version 4, it keeps fighting us. But other than that, I think we've kind of identified all the major blockers.
Okay, and once we have the config file, so you said that's been merged and approved.
True.
That's like a breaking change, right?
Yeah.
So we have to ask everybody to do like a complete wipe, uninstall before they can use that version.
That will be the most healthy solution. Like, of course, there are workarounds, like they can manually create the configuration file if they wanted to, but that will just create more issues, I think, and it will not be maintainable.
Yeah, like it's fine for us, especially at this stage, to expect users to not be able to retain their plots between upgrades, especially since the plots are so small. So when we do this release, when we update the README, the documentation, when we roll this out, Justin, of this version, we're just going to tell everybody to just wipe everything and start over. There is no upgrade process. This is a breaking change.
Yes, but a clearing point, these changes are merged into main, and main is at the stage of multi-replica. So we won't see this change in 0.4 series.
Okay, so when will we see this change? Once we have multi-replica tested?
Yeah, after multi-replica, I believe it will be along with multi-replica. So for example, 0.5.0 will have this change.
Okay. Feels
You
like
already-
we're just like, go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna, you already built executables for 5.0, right, Austin?
Can you repeat?
You already built executable files for 5.0?
Yeah, I did, but I deleted them from GitHub.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say so I could start messing with it and testing it out. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I was just, I mean, I feel like we're still got this perpetual issue of we have all these changes, but we're not like rolling them forward. So we just need to get to the point where we can at least publish, like, we're not going to announce it. We're not going to go on Discord and like tell everybody to download and install it, but it would be great if we could at least have this ready and start testing it to the point that we can announce it to users, and just move on and start a more graceful upgrade process from there.
Yeah, it's been a bit unlucky. Like the edge cases for 0.4 were a bit too much. We are handling them, but it's going slow. And also, like the release process has been like diverged. There is a multi-replica thing going on in the main branch, and for the 0.4 updates, I'm working on another branch because they are behind the main.
Can we just freeze updates to 0.4?
We
I
can.
mean, do we really need to do parallel updates to a version that we're about to upgrade away from anyways? Are we trying to, is that so that we can like support the existing user base? Is that the idea?
It was just a happens chance of the timing of everything. We had a new version of the Subspace desktop, and then new core version came out that kind of superseded the Subspace desktop versions we've been working on. So it's just kind of like duplicated itself as that new version of the snapshot came out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Seems like we're just creating a lot more work for ourselves than maybe we really need to do, making our lives harder.
And that's
Yeah,
kind of
maybe.
why I mentioned the 5.0 thing, because from my perspective, it seems like it'd be more useful to make sure 5.0 is good to go, and obviously incorporate all the changes from 4.0 as well, but because that's what we're getting ready to roll out to users with these next updates.
We can
Yeah.
also just like say, hey guys, Subspace desktop is not supported until further notice. And like in a week, once we have 5.0 ready, we can release it and stop trying to like patch 4.0 while working on 5.0 and testing both in parallel. Because it's not like it's really, it's not like a big deal at this stage.
I agree, and the bad news is the debugging that we are performing on 0.4 will not be helpful for 0.5. So it's just like 1 week effort, and then it will be in vain.
Yeah.
Because the structure I'm debugging for 0.4 has already changed for multi-replica. And all the bugs for that, as far as I'm concerned and tested, are not present in 0.5.
Okay, so let's just say if we get any more bugs on let's just let people know like, hey, Subspace desktop is waiting a major upgrade change. It's not going to be supported in the meantime, and just stop working on these bugs for these past versions and just focus on getting the 0.5 release out and testing that.
Can I make a suggestion? I feel like we are very close, and I think it won't take much time to debug the latest bug because I'm very deep into that. I can fix that, and if there is more
You
bugs,
just can't let go. You just really like debugging in parallel, huh?
yeah, like
It's like
let's say one
Stockholm
more
syndrome.
version, let's say one more version, and if there are more bugs coming, I will just abandon it because I feel it's very close for being stable.
The last 20% of the bug takes 80% of the time.
Yeah, like let's call it for we can just make it like today. It's evening for me, and if I can't make it for the night,
Okay, if you can't make it for today, then we'll move on. If you can, we can release it.
Yeah.
But no more bugs on 0.4.
I agree.
Okay.
That's good.
That's all from me.
Me as well.
Okay, thank you. That was good.
Okay, see you guys. Bye bye.